everyone, it's Raina. So this video is if you have your sun in Cancer and your moon in Aries. Okay, how do I explain this? I want to be very delicate. This is slightly challenging because we're talking about somebody who is aspiring to be like a Cancer individual. So what does Cancer represent? The nurturing side of life, the fourth house of home and family, the mother archetype, and then all the things that go along with that. Cardinal water sign. So the person is very sensitive, both in terms of themselves and with other people, and they want to protect others. So there's a protective quality. And so there's a lot of wonderful things. Feed people, that's a big one. That's part of nurturing, right? And then the moon is how we express our emotions and how we even, what kind of emotions come up for us, are generated. Don't think that everybody has the same emotional reaction to the same event, because they don't. Some people can have terrible abuse and they can be kind of, how would I put it, very dry. It's not to say that it didn't affect them whatsoever, but they kind of go on with their life and they can function very well. Some people just fall apart. Obviously, you would have to look at their past lives, maybe. There's some vulnerabilities in some souls due to past life situations that make them more fragile in this lifetime. Yeah, I can go along with that. But the moon in Aries is very volatile, and Cancer and Aries form a square because they're both cardinal signs and they are 90 degrees apart. So there's a clash with squares and there's friction. It can lead to attraction if there are two people who are both, who square off to one another, but there can also be some stormy moments too. I'm talking about somebody within themselves that has this square between the sun and moon. Now, I have a square between my sun and moon. My sun is in Sagittarius and my moon is in Virgo, but those are both mutable signs, and it's not the same thing. With cardinal signs, there is a very strong desire to act. And so when the moon is in Aries, the person is acting on emotion. And this is one of the reasons why the moon in Aries is very volatile, because the person is reacting. They're not acting. I mean, I should point that out, is that there is a reaction with the moon. The cardinal energy is about taking action, but the actual emotional expression is a reaction. And, when we break down the word reaction, that means again. And that means that it's almost like recycling a certain emotion because we get triggered in the same way, but it might not be something that is the same situation. So the person is just constantly reacting to things. They have their button pushed and it's like a robot and they'll just go off. So it's very important that somebody who has the moon in Aries in general is able to learn how best to express anger, not to shove it under the rug, but to know what is appropriate and also productive. One of the problems is for anybody who has the moon in Aries, regardless of sun sign, is that Aries is quite impatient. And that's because Mars is so, Mars has a sense of urgency. I think that's why it is like that. But the Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, so I could see it's associated with the infant. in terms of different stages of life. So, not surprisingly, a person with the moon in Aries can be emotionally immature in a sense, where they just kind of express their emotions as they come out, unfiltered. But it's if they get angry, it can be like a little toddler getting angry. I will say that there is one nice, refreshing thing about the sign of Aries, and it's that it is a very authentic sign. Typically, you won't get Aries people who are fake. They usually will just be who they are. Although, wait until I do the sun in combination with the rising sign, because when I get to a person that I know who has the sun in Aries and Cancer rising, that I finally, when I found out what their astrology was, it made perfect sense to me, because that person always kind of was unsettling to me, because I never felt that there was an authentic expression there. But I couldn't figure out why. And now I realize why. And also what may be inside of them, that type of person, to kind of make it hard for them to come across in a way that other people can feel good about sometimes. So it's important to note that none of this makes somebody a bad person. So even if a person has difficulty with how they express themselves or whatever I'm talking about, that's just my moon in Virgo being kind of critical and pointing things out. Because in truth, we are who we are, and there's nothing inherently wrong with who we are. It's just that if we're not willing to change, then if our behavior affects other people adversely, then there is kind of a problem, I would say. But in general, I feel like people are just doing the best that they can. So I just want to raise awareness so that people, if they go, oh, yeah, damn, that's me, that they can, just by knowing that that's how they come across, that they can alter that behavior in a more positive direction. So it's important also to note that you're not going to have an official square unless you're a certain degree span, sun and moon. So you must find that out. I use astro.com. They have like an aspects table. It's free. You just have to put in your information. You have to have your exact time of birth, though. And you can find out what this, if this is actually forming a square. But aside from that, I still think that these things are going to manifest, and there is going to be like a head and heart type of situation, which I see with the square between the sun in Cancer and the moon in Aries, in any square situation. So I was going to say your higher self wants to do one thing. The sun isn't necessarily the higher self, but to me, it's plugged into the higher self in the sense that it came for a specific mission, and that involves the universe, the world as we know it. The moon sign to me is more of that emotional baggage that we can also bring from other lifetimes. But the moon can represent the mother. And if you had a mother who was very volatile yourself, that could have been quite traumatic for a sun in Cancer person, because this may have made you feel unloved. I know maybe I'm sounding like really negative about the moon in Aries, but Aries is a sign that is very playful, spontaneous, big kid at heart. So I don't want to just say, oh yeah, this is just like psycho or anything like that. But Aries are known to have a temper, and that's just how it is. And when they mature and when they have experienced enough backlash from such behavior, they can mature into a more measured type of response to their frustrations. But the point that I'm making is that the mother might have been very creative, very ahead of her time in the sense that if depending on how old you are, of course, but she may have been like a pioneer. That's the pioneer energy is what Aries is associated with. And this can be somebody who encouraged like her daughters to be very ambitious or very, what's the word, like assertive, because this is a masculine sign. Now, for a Cancer woman, this can actually be a good thing because Cancer tends to be a traditional sign. So a female Cancer will easily fall into that domestic goddess role without even thinking twice about it, and not thinking to herself, I think I want to wait on having children. I know that I'm going to have them, but I'm not, I want to establish myself in the business world, or I want to get a master's degree. I want to get a few years of teaching under my belt, whatever it is, what the goals are. And then maybe I'll stay home with my children. Maybe I'll homeschool. Maybe, I'll start a home business. But that idea is something that Cancer really it's really good if they have somebody who's like a role model to show them how to do it. So in that sense, this person, this mother, who may not have been an actual Aries but had that kind of pioneering spirit, may have influenced them, but with it could have come this kind of anger management issue situation, or just overall pushiness, aggressiveness, impatience. And that's another series that I want to do, looking at parent and child interactions with the sun signs, because I feel like in my observation, I worked in a school as a teacher assistant, and I also have a background in education. I don't have children myself, but I have seen adults who express impatience with children and how that can adversely affect them. And I want to, just discuss that in the hopes to kind of bring awareness to some parents who may have these tendencies, to let them know that, and this goes for everybody, people of all ages, that being impatient and trying to push somebody to do something is really forcing your will on them. You don't want to do that. You want to find ways to encourage people without resorting to that kind of behavior, because at the extreme level, it becomes almost like bullying, And this is the thing, that the moon is in Aries, so it can be very passionate about what its desires are. And also just having a very short fuse. If I don't get what I want, I'm going to have a grand mal hissy fit, instead of being very, detached from the results of their actions. But on the plus side, this person can be very creative, and certainly the sun in Cancer can be that way as well. So they can work well that way, endlessly inspired, and somebody who taps into their inner child very easily, and just can be fun to be around. They there's an energy that people with a prominent Aries gives off that is palpable because they have so much energy in reserve that they're always very full of life and that kind of thing. The sun in Cancer can use a little bit of that bravado because sun in Cancer individuals, they tend to be a little bit unsure of themselves and reticent, meaning that they can be afraid to stick their neck out and do something that could possibly invite ridicule, criticism, what have you, because they are very sensitive souls. So you have to be willing to accept reactions from other people that are not what you expect, or you can't, bring your creations out into the world. And so this combination gives the person more guts, but if they don't get the desired results, yeah, they might go off, people like this. And with Cancer, there's always the tendency to feel sorry for oneself and feel like other people are persecuting them, kind of like Pisces, but a little bit less of the victim because Cancer is a cardinal sign. So these sort of people, they might whine for a bit, but then they're going to take action. Or as my partner says, talking about somebody else, they don't get mad, they get even. Maybe I should be saying that about Scorpio more than Cancer. But anyway, in terms of the types of work that you may gravitate towards, I think a natural is teaching. I always think of Cancer as a teacher. And this combination would be wonderful for an early childhood educator because of the spontaneity that the moon in Aries provides. This is a double cardinal sun-moon combination. So you are very well suited to working for yourself because you're a take charge kind of person. So take charge kinds of people, or the cardinal signs, in addition to Cancer and Aries. We're also talking about Capricorn and Libra, and these signs take action, which means that they're not sitting around talking about their goals, they're actually implementing them. However, most of these signs, I think, could work for another person very easily. The exception to that, I feel, is Aries. And because you have this as your moon sign, you might be resentful of people trying to tell you what to do too. So that might result in sabotaging yourself in a workplace because you get easily riled up by being told what to do, being assessed for your job abilities and things of this nature. You're just a natural leader and a natural worker for yourself. So you actually taking those steps to do that is always really impressive. I think that Cancer sun signs tend to be the kind of people who would love all their ducks in a little row before they launch anything, because you might feel like you have to do everything perfectly before you start your own business or something like that. And the problem with that is that it can lead to procrastination, because a lot of times everything isn't going to be perfect and we have to still take action in spite of that. And you might be reluctant to do so. Doesn't mean that you won't, but that can be one of the things that holds you back. And that's another thing to mention, is that when someone has this combination. You don't want to burn bridges, with that. If you do have a bit of a temper, that can be something that even if you apologize later, you can't take it back. And also look, in the aspects table to see if you have a hard angle from Mercury to Mars. Oh yeah, I was going to say too, Mars aspects, because that can, like from the moon to Mars, but also Mercury to Mars, because that combination can be something where the person says something that they later regret and they can't really take it back. Once you said something mean, it's very hard to take it back, especially if it was accurate and yet something that you didn't quite mean to say, but you were just so emotional in that moment. I think that you excel in the arts. So even being a performer, even if you're a little bit shy, look to the rising sign to see more information. I mean, if the rising sign is in Leo, and if your sun is in Cancer, you may have Mars in Leo, and you might be very theatrical anyway. And that could lend itself more to those kinds of creative pursuits. So look at that, see where it's at. And in terms of your love life, Cancer tends to be traditional and wants that wedding ring, wants to start a family, doesn't want an alternative lifestyle. So, but you may be attracted to people, like your inner planets. So if it's like Venus and or Mars are in signs like Leo or Gemini, you may get involved with somebody who is not as home oriented as you're looking for, but you may find them irresistible. Especially if you have Earth as your in your I mean, like fire or air in those inner planets, that's going to be the type of person that you tend to be attracted to. And the sun, can't be denied, even if it's the only thing that is in water or the only thing that is a feminine sign, meaning water or earth. So, because sometimes I see that when I'm doing private readings, that the person might have the sun like all by its lonesome in this one, as a feminine or masculine planet, and then they have the opposite energies in the other personal points. And they may find that they're drawn to a certain type of person who just is not compatible with them. And it's not that there's anything wrong with that person. It's just that the way that they approach life, and especially how they relate to relationships, it's a lot different, and it has to be honored. But you can have this, you can blow hot and cold. You can have periods where you're very clingy, because that's associated with Cancer, and then you're very like that masculine, I want to do my own thing. And you may not even understand that about yourself, and like, why did I just, not want to be around that person? And I'm lecturing them on being committed to me, and here I go. Because that's always going to be something, is that you need that emotional freedom. But will you grant it to others? Even when you're feeling a little bit insecure, that's the real question. And that might be something that you have to make a point of doing, because you might not have a tendency to do it. So the kind of person who is really what's the word, appropriate for you is someone who can appreciate both sides of you, that isn't going to be turned off by the part of you that maybe gets a little bit insecure and needs reassurance in terms of love, and the part of you and more, cuddles and feeling like, the person really cares. And the part of you that is very, and also your own nurturing ability, and the part of you that is very like ballsy would be a good way of putting it, and just up for the next adventure, very adventurous, and relating to people that way. So even as a parent, you might relate to your child in these two like extremely opposing ways. Maybe are overprotective at times, and then almost like leaving the child to their own devices kind of deal. So that might be living in two extremes that you have to change that about your life. Okay, well, that's what I have for you. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a personal reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.